Good afternoon, and welcome to another provocative episode of Diatribes from the voice of Doom. Now here's your prevaricating and prolific host, voice of Doom. Georgie Ligeti, another 20th century composer. You may recognize this song. I always sing it to myself when I'm driving. It's from 2001. Kubrick used a lot of classic music in his movie, which was a masterpiece. Yeah, just goes on like that, so I will cut it off. Now, I have some things to say. Watch the Sunday shows, and usually I'm enraged after watching a bunch of those shows, and I'm ready to do a scathing diatribe, just totally tear everyone a new one. But I like to pray before I do a diatribe because it helps me to clear my mind and put everything in order. And by praying, I mean chanting and then praying every day. And then after I'm done with that, I'm not as mad as I was. And then maybe I move on to something else or don't even do a diatribe because I forget what I was angry at. But let's talk about a few things that are happening. First of all, microcosm. My kid's getting better by the day, which is what I was praying for. He is changing his routine from drinking and going from bar to bar every day to working every day and paying his bills and paying me. So I'm very happy about that, and I hope it keeps going. And I realize that he's a chip off the old block, and when I see him drinking shots at 7 in the morning, I look at myself, and I've been smoking cannabis since 1975, and my favorite time to smoke is first thing in the morning. So I can blame myself, my own genes, and I can also say that it hasn't hindered me much. I got my degree, I work, I've been productive, I raised 2 kids. So be that as it may, he's using his substance and medicating himself. He says he can actually feel more ambitious after a shot. So I'm not going to preach at him at that. He will learn with his health that he will want to stop soon. So we'll leave that there. Everything's getting much better. And now let's talk about the macrocosm, which is getting much worse. First, the election, 2 weeks away. It's Tuesday. People are early voting. I've thought about it. I hate the thought of early voting because I just have a feeling that all those votes will be manipulated somehow. Just don't trust the system, the technology. It would be fine. It would be simple technology to keep the votes very well counted and orderly. But they don't want to use technology for that because then you'd have an actual outcome which everyone would have to go along with. Now, what's going to happen on the 8th? I'll tell you what's going to happen on the 9th. I mean, first of all, they may not get to it right away, but they'll start talking about 2024. About 2 minutes after the votes are tabulated and the results are given, they will move on to who's going to win in 24. So now I think there's a lot more things to worry about than that, but because I don't think there's going to be an election in 2024, I just can't see it happening. So what's going to happen on the 8th? Okay, 3 things. One of 3 things. Going one way on the flow chart. The D's I've been talking to my friends, and I'm saying the D's could actually win without cheating more than they usually do. So, everybody talks about there's got to be a catastrophe in order for the D's to pull something off. And I'm saying they could win outright. And I'll tell you why. Even though the D's have lost their stranglehold on the people of color, the so-called blacks and so-called Hispanics, they're starting to pull away from the D's because they realize they've been duped all these years and they've been taken for granted and they don't like it anymore. Anyone with half a brain knows that that's condescending and racist to lump all the people together and say you must all think this way. Alright, that's a given. So they lost the stranglehold on those people, but what stranglehold do they still have and will always have? It will be a voting bloc for the D's until time immemorial. What bloc is that? The idiot bloc. Yep, that's what bloc. The stupid moron bloc of the majority of the populace of what used to be the U.S. that vote. There's so many of them, and they're getting exponentially larger. So the D's have nothing to worry about on that front. They have locked in the idiot bloc forever. And if you look at TikTok, people that are 18 and over that have the right to vote, it's a scary thought, because look at the people on TikTok. They're going to vote. Now they're part of the idiot bloc. And there's many more. There's old hippies that run around and, protest not being able to abort their kids. They're like 79, whatever. Okay, so the D's win with the idiot bloc because everything's neck and neck on all these races. It means half the electorate are voting D. That means half of them are out, gone, brain dead. Now, the D's win and say we have a mandate that everything we're doing is right. So the end of the world is accelerated. Now, another possibility, the Goppers win. And then you go on the flow chart and there's two ways they can act after they win. First of all, the news will be saturated with discrepancies in the votes in every state of the union. Saturated. You watch what happens. The Goppers win, there will be nothing but reportage on how the votes are fraudulent. And they will be into that for weeks up until January 20th. Now the Goppers win, January 20th comes around. Who knows what the D's will do between November 8th and January 20th. They may all commit seppuku. And I'll be their second. But, so the Goppers win. And they're going to go one of two ways. The first way they go is what's predictable. We're going to change everything. We're going to start with doing legislation on tax reform and tort reform. Those are our big ideas. Forget the problems we have. We'll do tax reform and give people back their money, then they spend it, and that brings down inflation. Whatever. Well, that's the way they probably will go. As far as what's happened in the last 2 years, what's happened in the last 50 years, with certain segments of society that live in a house that's colored white. Forget that. Now, there's another way that the Goppers could go, and I would really love to see this, but I won't, because the Goppers aren't known for doing these kind of things. Getting to the bottom of the whole mess of what we call American history. Every single thing, starting with yesterday and going backwards. Indict, convict, and incarcerate the criminals. I don't care what position they held previously. This idea that certain people are just exempt from any kind of prosecution has got to go. And if the gulpers did that, they would uncover an onion the size of this planet, of corruption, of deceit, of misappropriation of funds, of waste, of war, of unnecessary wars. Now let's look at the protesters real quick. It's nice to see that the wokesters are starting to bother the wokesters. It's nice to see people shouting at The View about climate change, and it's fun to see college kids running onto fields and disrupting games, infuriating everyone because of climate change. Now, the climate does change. Islands will go underwater. Archipelagos will disappear. Large chunks of land will fall into the sea. It's happening right now. It's always happened. You look at geography and geology, and this planet has evolved. Everything changes. Erosion, tectonic activity. I don't remember it all, but I know more than most. The Earth changes. Okay, you adapt to it. Always have, always will. All right. This, protest climate. Now, I understand college people want to protest something. And in the good old days, back in the 13th century, when I was in college, most college students protested war because there was always a war, and so there was college students to protest it. They protested Vietnam vehemently. We were kind of protesting Central America because America, what used to be, was just meddling around in there, not just letting them do what they want to do. It's the same old domino effect. And that was like Carter forward when he was letting the whole damn world go to communism, totalitarianism, whatever. So we protest the war. Now these college students are for the war because this Ukrainian cocky guy is a big hero, and they're oppressed, and they represent everything that's wrong with the world as far as their oppression, and these big bad Ruskies. And fine, there's a war, there's a territorial dispute, which we're getting right in the middle of and exacerbating and making worse. So these protesters have it ass backwards, and they're not environmentalists. If they were, they would never ever get in a car. Never. I'm not talking about, I drive a bike to school. Well, these college students might live on campus, so their world is condensed. But you don't have a car, and all of a sudden you have a hankering to go on a road trip, and it's like, what do? Well, I'll go with my friends. They have a car. Well, you're a hypocrite. Don't ever drive in a car. And don't do most of the things that you probably do. You can blame dogs, you can blame cattle, and you can blame cars for climate change. But it's going to change, and I think that they are going to change climate very dramatically in one fell swoop, and not worry about whether there's too many emissions in the air, which dissipate. It's going to be done by dirty bombs. It's going to be done by the air being contaminated with radioactive dust, okay? So I think I've said enough. I could say more. I think this was a good one. I think I said quite a bit there. And I didn't write anything down. I know I had more brilliant stuff to say, and I'll say it later. We got 2 weeks. We'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting, and I'm looking forward to every minute of it. All right, then. Enjoy the rest of the day, and thanks.